Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma DAF Pei Vav. We are holding on Pei Heyom and Beis, 4 lines off the bottom. Boy Rabba. Sheves, suppose Reuben attacks Shimon and puts him out of work. Okay, so it's like let's say a temporary paralysis situation. So temporarily, he cannot do any work. He's unable to work. So that's Sheves. But it does somehow diminish his value. So, as Tesis explains, people view this person as though he's unable to work and perhaps for a prolonged period of time, and it affects the actual perception, the way people perceive this person, and it will affect, or it can affect, his market value. Right? So in reality, realistically, he's going to get back to himself very soon. But in people's eyes, it isn't necessarily so. So his market value, so to speak, does plummet. Sheves hapoich soy midamim. So until now we spoke about, a real diminishing of value. He lost his hand, he lost his function in his foot permanently. So in that case, he has to pay nezek, the drop in market value if you were to be sold as a slave, right? And we have sheves on top of that, which basically means because even when he has no functioning foot, he can still serve in some capacity, a low wage job or whatever. But as he's recovering, he can't even do that. So that's how we get the two payments. One is nezek, sort of the lump sum diminished value, compensation. We have sheves, temporary unemployment. But here we have a situation where he's not really permanently out of work. It's not a permanent injury, but in people's eyes, in terms of perception, his value can plummet. It can affect his market value because it appears like he's no longer able to really work. Sheves hapoich soy b'damim. Now, so the question is, does the attacker have to pay for that as well? Or is it enough that he just gives him, his loss of wages? So give me an example. So he struck him on his hand and he sort of paralyzed it. Tzamsa literally means he shriveled it or something. He put it out of business for a while. But it's going to get back to itself. So what's the halacha? Since ultimately it's going to return to normal, he'll be back to himself. There's no reason to pay for it. But ultimately, right now, technically, he's worth less. So that has to be accounted for. Toshma, here comes a right that you have to pay for it. A person strikes his parents, but without making a wound. So there's no chiyuv misa, right? Doesn't get put to death. And therefore, he has to compensate monetarily. Or another example, he strikes somebody on Yom Kippur, where there's no chiyuv misa as per the bezdin. It's only min hashamayim, so the bezdin will only give malchus. In any case, there's no chiyuv misa, so chayiv bekulon. In both cases, he must pay out all the 5 payments, which we've been speaking about last couple of days, which is the nezek, the tsar, the ripud, the sheves, and the boishes. Market value, loss of market value, pain, discomfort, right? That's tsar, ripui, medical bills, sheves, loss of wages, and boishes, embarrassment. So we have 2 cases where there was no actual wound inflicted, and therefore it triggers these payments. Now, let's have an example of damage without a chabur, hezek without a wound. Must be this type of case. He struck him on his hand and he paralyzed him, but it's only temporarily and it's going to get back to normal. Here we see that you have to pay for all. Even nezek, diminished market value. Says the Gemara, Amri. So the answer was like this. Hachab my skin, perhaps was speaking, well, also bechabura. It did have a permanent effect on the person. He made him deaf without inflicting a wound. So in that case, of course, he's liable to all those payments because this is a permanent condition and unrelated to our discussion. What do you mean? How could you say that's what happened? If one does it to his father, he gets misa. Because internally there's some sort of wound happening which trigger this deafness. You can't have becoming deaf without a wound. Tips of the dama, a drop of blood, nafli budne, somehow, fell within his ear. Basically, there was some sort of bloodletting there. Some sort of internal wound that caused this condition. So if that would be the case of the Mishnah, he wouldn't be paying anything because then he's liable to capital punishment by the Bezdin, and we know there's no monetary liabilities when there's Misa. That can't be the case. So how can we have a case where he attacked, caused damage, needs to pay all those payments, but there was no real wound inflicted? How do you get all that together? Ella, hacha, b'mayaskina. We must be speaking like this. Kigoyin shegilchay. He shaved him. Okay, took away all his hair. So that can drop his market value, even without actually experiencing a wound. Well, says the Gemara, Gilchay, if that's what happened, Mihad Hadar is going to grow back behind a bayim. So that's exactly what we're talking about today. A depreciation of value without an actual wound. Something which is just temporary. And the Bryce clearly tells us that you're liable to all these payments, even Nezek, which is reflective of his market depreciation, even though it's a temporary condition. There you go, it's a right, our Shaila. Amri's answer was no. Here it's permanent. He attacked. No wound, but it's permanent. And there was a real depreciation of value. Amri Hachmai, he didn't just shave him with a hair cutting machine. He smeared some sort of cream of some sort. He applied nasha, which removes hair permanently. The loy hadar, which prevents it from regrowing. So that's a permanent condition, of course. Of course, he has to pay it all. He has to pay the nezek, because Rashi calls it a mum. It's considered a mum. Who wants a bald, eved? So that really, truly drops his market value. What about the other payments? Tsar. How do you get tsar just because you removed this here? This like kartufni b'reish. What happened was, he had these b'koim Rashi chatot, and some sort of pimple, some sort of chapped skin on his head, some sort of skin condition, which is sensitive to this cream. V'tzavchi mahanu kartufni. He's yelling. He's in pain from these wounds in his head, which were exacerbated with the pain was exacerbated with this application. So bottom line is he gets tsar payment. What about ripui de boyi asui? He has to heal them. Sheves, loss of wages. How does he lose weight? How does he lose employment? Because of this cream on his head. They have a market beikuvi. This fellow had an interesting profession. He's like a bar dancer. The boy machvi gavni areshi. He's got to show his all kinds of tilts, all kinds of motions with his head. He's unable to do so because of these wounds on his head. Finally, you pay boishes as well. You don't have a greater embarrassment. This fellow was walking around hairless and okay. So bottom line, it has no shaykh, there's no connection to our discussion. We wanted to know, when we have a temporary paralysis, a temporary inability to work, does that trigger nezek payment or just simply unemployment? Do we look at this potential sort of perceived market depreciation or not? We tried to prove from this case, but here we're speaking about a real drop in value because he's really worth less. He has this blemish. Continues the Gemara, Umilsa the Pshit the Boile the Rabba. This question presented by Rabba, Pshitili la Abai lachkisa. So Abai had an opinion one way. Well, the Rabba lachkisa, Rabba had an opinion the other way. They didn't have any question. They knew exactly what they had an opinion one or the other. The Itma, as we had learned, this exact case, he koal yadav et samsa b'seif alachso, he struck him on his hand, paralyzed it, and it's gonna, recover very soon. Abaya Amar, what are the consequences? Noisin l'sheves gedoylo v'sheves katana. He pays him sheves katana, which is the minimum wage, so to speak, that he was deprived of because while he's recovering, he can't even do anything. So, that's called sheves katana. Sheves gedoylo, he also has to give him this sort of drop in value, this temporary drop in value resulting from this temporary situation. Now, it's not called nezek. Nezek technically means his long-term market value, but here it's not a long-term situation. So it's a smaller version of nezek, so to speak, but he's liable to that. So I hold you have to pay that. Even though in reality it's going to get back to normal soon, no. There is technically a drop in value temporarily, yes, you have to pay for that as well. Rav Amar, no. We don't split it into two payments. There's no real legitimate drop in market value. It's just about his inability to work, and that's what you give him. His daily unemployment. Itmar, we have learned another question. Person owns a Jewish slave, which is meant to work for 6 years, and the Reuven removes the hand of the Eved. What does he pay, and who does he pay to? Once again, we have a machlekes between Abaye and Rava. Abaye Amar, so in terms of his loss of value, his inherent loss of market value, that goes to the Eved. Rashi calls it Demei Yodai, right? The actual value of his hand. V'sheves ketana l'Rav. Now, the sheves, the small sheves, which is reflective of his inability to work on a daily basis, that he gives to the owner, only of the Eved, because he can't work now. Now, interesting. Why does Abaye call nezek? Why does he term it sheves gedoyla? He was speaking about a yid. He's deserving of regular nezek, hundreds of thousands, whatever his value dropped in the market. So the MS Yaakov explains that it's simple. It's pasha to the Gemara. That amount he gives to the Eved, the part which is beyond the 6-year work term. He works for 6 years, right? And he goes free. So that drop in market value past 6 years, that would go to the Eved, because he's meant to be a free man at that point. So that loss of value, that belongs to the Eved. The only question is his loss of value from now till the end of the 6-year term. If you would sell him, for whatever, the remainder of a 6-year term, how much less would he have to sell him for in view of his injury? Right. So the chiddush is that even that's called sheves gedoyla. That loss of Eved value, even that goes to the Eved. But the sheves katana, as we explained, the practical loss of work, that goes to the Rav. Rava Amar hakoil yinosan leEved. All goes to the Eved. V'lokach b'hen karka. You take the money, invest it into real estate. V'Rabbi Chalperes, and the owner takes the income from that land. That's the girsa we have in Al Gemara. Tosfos has a kash. He says, "What do you mean? Why doesn't the owner get something? He's losing an Eved." So he learns that he has different girsa. He says everything goes to the sheves katana. Certainly goes to the owner, meaning the loss of wages on a short-term basis. That certainly goes to the owner. Sheves gedoyla, his market depreciation. So that we sort of split. The actual principal stays by the Eved. He uses it, he invests it, and the income goes to the owner. Now, pshita piches etzel atzmoi etzel rabbi lo piches. Let's say this injury affected the value of the eved per se, but did not affect his performance with respect to his owner. Hechidami, for instance, the paskileresh une. This attacker chipped off a part of his ear. Eileresh nechire, part of his nose. It doesn't interfere with his ability to work for his owner at all. Hakoila atzmai. Here, the eved gets everything. Piches etzel rabbi. But let's say it did affect his performance with respect to his owner. So here we have the plukta, the vayverav, machlekes the vayverav, in terms of who gets the money. Now the Mishnah concludes regarding the poishas payment. That's relative to the status of the attacker and the person attacked, meaning the more prominent the victim is, the more embarrassed he is. Right? Hakoy lefi ha'mevayish ha'misbayish. Mani masnisin loy Rabbi Meir. Now who's the author of the Mishnah? That it's based on status and it's a fluctuating value. It's not a set formula. Who's speaking here? Loy Rabbi Meir, for Rabbi Yehuda, El Rabbi Shimon. It cannot be Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda. We'll see in a minute. The only one that it could work with is Rabbi Shimon. It's not. We have a Mishnah regarding establishing the boishes payment. V'kulan, any victim, Rayan Oisan Kihilu Haim Bnei Chayrin. We view them as though they're free men, not slaves, regular people. Sheyardim Nechseim, as though they were wealthy once and they lost their money. So it's still sort of, feeling somewhat, chashav and prominent inside. They still, recall their high status, but in actuality, they're not, people of high value in terms of, their wealth, right? So any yid is given this sort of label, so to speak. We view him as though he's at this point in life. So it's sort of like it's an in-between type of situation, a middle of the road type of formula. Not too prominent, not too, not too low in the social, societal ladder. Somewhere in the middle. Why is this a fair label? Sheheim b'nei Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Ultimately, every yid has the same lineage, the same heritage. We come from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So inherently, we have chashivas, we have prominence, irrespective of whether or not we have great wealth. So, according to Rabbi, we look at inherent value, and that's it. So every yid, whether wealthy, poor, it's all the same thing. Rabbi Yehuda, no, it is wealth related. Wealthy man, we evaluate him as is. Poor man as is. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, he says, look, we do take into account his societal standing and his wealth, which for some reason determines his status in the community, but we add some mitigating factor as well. We go a bit lakula. Even an ultra wealthy person, we don't gauge them based on their current wealthy situation. We view them as though they lost their money. So they're still somewhat, chashiv, whatever, right? And they're sensitive to this type of attack and embarrassment. So we sort of not drop it down one notch. Rather than wealthy, was wealthy. And the same thing regarding aniyim, impoverished people. We evaluate them based on the low, the poorest person. So we sort of drop them down a notch as well. We go l'kula, because who says, Tesis explains, it's very hard to peg an exact value and determine his level of susceptibility to embarrassment and shame. So we go l'kula. We're lenient. We cannot obligate this attacker more than this amount. Okay, so sort of the lowest value within his class. Okay, so we have three shittas. Rabbi Meir says all yidna all equal. Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, based on his community standing. Rabbi Shimon says, yeah, but we drop it down one notch, the lowest, common denominator within that class. Okay, so Mani, who's our Mishnah following? Rab Meir, is it Rab Meir? Well, no. Masnisan Katanya Koil if Yam Bayish, Vamis Bayish. Our Mishnah says we're very careful to take into account the status of the attacker and the victim. Rab Meir disagrees. He says they're all treated equally. Kulhu, all victims are treated equally. Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, well, Masnisan Katanya Bayish Summa Chayiv. Soon on Amud Beis, we're going to learn that if a person embarrasses even a summa, blind man, you got to pay for baishas. And Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda holds summa ain't baishas. There's no baishas payment to a summa. We'll see later why. So it can't be him. Allah Rab Shimon he. It must be our Mishnah reflects Rab Shimon's shita, but not the other Tanaim. Is that so? No. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda, it can work even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Ki kam Rabbi Yehuda summa ain't baishas. All Rabbi Yehuda meant was that lemishkol mineh, you can't obligate a summa to pay for embarrassing others. But if you embarrass him, you have to pay him. But but the next part of the Mishnah says hamavayishes hayashin chayiv. V'yashin should be yesh pater. If you embarrass a sleeping person, you got to pay. A yashin who was mavayish is pater. V'lektani summa should be yesh pater. Doesn't say that a summa was mavayish is pater. So apparently, when it comes to a blind man, it doesn't matter whether you attacked him, you pay, or he attacked somebody else, he pays. Which is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, the correct approach is Masis and Rab Shimoni. Our Mishnah reflects Rab Shimon's shita, that the Baisha's payment is reflective of his community standing and his prominence. And just like it depends on the victim's status, so it depends on the attacker's status as well. Rashi in the Mishnah, DAF Pekimah Beis learns that Hakoil Lefyam Vayish means Adam Kal Shabiyish, just a lowly man who attacks Boish de Miruba. It's more embarrassing to be attacked by a lowly man than by a prominent person, so that also is taken into the equation. Okay, continues the Gemara. Mantana Lahatan Rabban, who's the author of the following price, which says, Niskav on the Bayish Katan, Ubiyish Gadol. He was trying to embarrass a person with a low community standing, a poor man, let's say. Ubiyish Gadol, he ended up attacking a rich, wealthy, upstanding man. So he intended on doing a very small busha, which would have triggered $100 in Baisha's payment. He ended up going really grand. He only has to pay the $100. Likewise, Levaishas Eved, Ubiyashas ben Chayrin, he was attempting to embarrass an Eved Ivri, and he ended up striking out at a free man. How much does he pay? The lower amount. He only has to pay the small amount because that's the way Baishas works. It has to be something which was premeditated, intended, and here he only is liable to the act that he intended on doing. Okay. So the question is like this: who's the author? Who's the Manda Amar of this Bryce? Money. Rab Meir. It can't work according to any one of these. Why? Because the Gemara at this point figures, when we speak about small and big, low and high, Katan means Katan bin Chasim, not a wealthy man. Gadol means Gadol bin Chasim, ultra wealthy man. So we work with these formulas. Baishas is wealth and richness based. Now, according to Rab Meir, it doesn't work like that. It's inherent value, and that's it. Who cares about external, belongings and stuff like that? It doesn't change the value of the actual person, right? All men are created equal, so it doesn't work according to him. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the second part of the brisa doesn't work. There's no baishas payment by the Eved, and the brisa clearly indicates there is. Next, according to Rabbi Shimon, who says, in any case, when you missed your intended victim, you're potter, period. This guy on the Vaisha Zev potter, he tried to embarrass Reuben, he embarrassed Shimon, he potter. My time, I can tell, just like when a person kills. Ma'aktala, just like there, Adam Achavan Lei, it's only if he intended to kill this victim. Adam Askavan Dechsiv Arav Loi V'Kamalav. He aimed for him, he attacked him. Achi Skavan Loi must be perfectly planned and intended. But it's just not the same thing with embarrassment. Adam Achavan Loi, it's only if he intended the baishas for this victim. This woman embarrassed him by striking him directly. It has to be personal. So if he struck an unintended victim, there's no payment at all. So who's speaking in this price? It can work according to Rabbi Yehuda. When Rabbi Yehuda says there's no baishas for avadim, the mitzvah lahu. Sure, embarrass an evet, there's no payment. But technically he gets embarrassed. So there is a value to that. So that's all the Bryce is saying. You tried to embarrass an Eved, which would have embarrassed him this much, and you struck a regular person, you only paid this much baishas. Or you can say, it can work even going to Rab Meir. When the Bryce says gadol, great, big, you thought it meant in terms of wealth? And when it said katan, it means katan ben achasim? No, that's irrelevant. It's not a determining factor at all in determining baishas. No, gadol mamish. Gadol means an adult. Katan means katan mamish, a minor under a mitzvah. You tried to hit the katan, you hit the gadol, so that's the Bryce. Well, the katan b'baishas who? Since when is there the concept of shame and embarrassment by a katan? Yeah. Kadam Rav Papa, as Rav Papa tells us soon, true, a katan is not necessarily, open to embarrassment. He doesn't have that, sense of, self to really be embarrassed. But, when you really make a big deal about it, he does get embarrassed. The michlimulei. If you drum it up, hey, remember you got embarrassed. He can feel bad. Hachanam here as well. That's what we're speaking about. The michlimulei. Michlam. Rashi says, when they drum it up, you remember what you did. They embarrass him personally, mitzvah feels bad. So initially he doesn't really take it to heart, but when you make a big deal and you put him down, so the concept applies even by the katan. Continues the mission. If one embarrasses an undressed fellow, a blind man, a sleepy man, he's left to pay. But a yashin, what is he? He's not really embarrassing people. It's just a movement of his involuntary movement of his body. That's not something that triggers the baishas payment. Likewise, if a person falls off a high place, and harmed and embarrassed, so we split it. Sure, he has to pay for damages. That's regardless of intention or but not for embarrassment. That's interesting halacha. Baishas by definition is intended. I try to embarrass you, but otherwise I don't pay for it. So even if a person is undressed and at that point he was attacked and embarrassed, the attacker has to pay. But it's not the same as attacking and embarrassing a dressed person, right? You can't compare embarrassing a dressed person to an undressed person. Same concept, the embarrassment in the Beis HaMerchatz. Rashi says, B'nei Adam, I'm doing a room, and that's the way people stand. There's no concept of baishas there. So he's still chayav, because the fact is, he didn't act that put a person down. That's not just, circumstantially people are standing undressed, but a person deliberately, shames, even in that state, the person gets shamed. We still can't compare by being embarrassed there or out in the street, which is certainly a greater level of shame. Let's go back to explain this price. If you embarrassed him while he was undressed, he's chayiv. There's no concept of baishas in that state. When I was like this, he wasn't truly undressed. The asa zika karchid lamani. A wind came along and lifted his beged somewhat, right? So now he was, somewhat exposed. This fellow comes along and really removes the beged, lifts it all the way, fully exposed him, and really embarrassed him. So he took it from, stage B to stage C. The wind took it from A to B. Many embarrassment. He went and drastically exacerbated it, so that much he has to pay. Likewise, embarrassed him in the Beis HaMerchatz, he has to pay. Beis HaMerchatz, there's no embarrassment there. Same idea, he was standing over the river and he was somewhat exposed, and this fellow completely exposed him. Interesting question. Reuven embarrassed Shimon as he was sleeping, so he exposed him. And then he died in his sleep, so he never really became aware of this embarrassment. Umeis, what's the halacha? Is there a boish's payment or not? What's the question? The question is like this. What's the root of the boish's payment? Is it shame, embarrassment? Well, in this case, doesn't apply. He never experienced the shame. He never experienced embarrassment. He died. There's no shame. No shame, no payment. Or, Boishas reflects his state of degradation. He was degraded. Rashi says, even if he is totally unaware. The fact is, in terms of the observer, in terms of public's perception of him, he drops. And that's what you're paying for. Interesting. But Oizley, the fact is, even in this case, Oizley, his prominence, his value went down. His regard in people's eyes was affected, even though he never was aware of it. And therefore you pay it, to his kids, to his Yarsha. Tashmai comes an interesting right. You pay boishas even for embarrassing a deaf person, deaf mute, or even a katan. Shaita only boishas, but not a deranged person. Okay? That's the price. Now, let's analyze the halach. If the boishas payment is meant to reflect the lowering of his standing, lowering of his regard in people's eyes, that explains why even a katan has boishas. Fact is, he has zilzal, even though he doesn't have personal embarrassment, shame and embarrassment, but the fact is, he lowered his standing. However, if it's embarrassment based, katan bar boishas, so since when does a katan have that concept? So you're trying to prove that it's the first concept, zilusa, right? So then, even a deranged person is affected by it as well. So the word no. Amri, the answer is shoita. Shoita is a walking embarrassment, so to speak. So there's no zilusa as well. It's at the end of the day, tivshet minod mishum zilusu. So bottom line is, we've just proved that boishas essentially is a reflection of zilusa. Because were it related to embarrassment, katan bar kisufa, that doesn't relate to a katan. Answers the Gemara, here comes Rav Papa, because I'm Rav Papa, de michlemu leyo michla. True. A katan isn't easily embarrassed, but when you drum it up, you make a scene out of it. He's embarrassed. Achanami here as well was speaking. That's exactly what happened to Michlem Leyu Michlem. So this was a question posed by Rabbi Kamma. We tried to conclude from the Brisa. We were not really successful. Rav Papa had a different version of the shayla. The question was like this: So one does baishas to a sleeping person, pay or no pay? What's the question? Personal embarrassment? Well, he doesn't have it. He died. Familial embarrassment. His family is embarrassed by this story. And that is sufficient reason to trigger payment. So it's all about embarrassment, not diminished value. Embarrassment, his or his family's. That's the shayla. Tashma, we try to prove the same from the same price. Chei reish the katan yeshli baishas. So regarding a cheresh and a katan, there's baishas, but shaita not, ain't like baishas. So it's all good and well if you're paying for the family's shame and embarrassment. That explains why it applies to a katan as well. But if it were due to his personal shame, katan bar baishasu, since when does the katan have that? So what are you suggesting? It's related to the family. Well, then I feel shaita nami. Then do it even by the shaita. His family suffers. Well, they don't suffer. They suffer enough without it. Shaita and the shaita is a walking baishas. There's no difference. It doesn't really add any baishas. So bottom line is we can conclude from this brisa the baishas relates to the family. Because if it were due to his personal shame only, then how does that relate to the katan? In a katan could also experience shame if it's overdone, and that explains the baishas payout. Asks the Gemara. It says the more about Tanya. It's not a kasha. It's a raya. Will support this point that certain level of baishas affects even a young adult. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler le baishas, shoyte and le baishas. A cheresh has baishas, but not a shoyte. Katan, well, it depends. Pa'amim yeshle, pa'amim ain't, sometimes yes, sometimes not. Depends how much you drum it up. Ha de michlim mulei michlim. You embarrass him by reminding him, by highlighting it, rubbing it in. Then he gets embarrassed. Ha de michlim mulei michlim. It's just a small time barb. It doesn't really affect. Hamarash sasuma, says the Mishnah, you pay. Masnis and the loiker Rabbi Yehuda. It doesn't appear the Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yehuda, because the Mishnah says if you embarrass a summa you pay, and if you embarrass a yashin you pay, right? But what about a yashin who's mavayish, he's potter, and it doesn't say the same by the summa. Apparently a summa who's mavayish pays. Masnissen. But this halacha, the like Rabbi Yehuda, is not like Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a summa is potter from baishus. The son of Rabbi Yehuda Imer, summa in the baishus, if a summa embarrasses, there's no baishus payout. V'kach hayir Rabbi Yehuda, and likewise Rabbi Yehuda would exempt him. Poitroi mechai v'golios, if he kills unintentionally, he doesn't go into exile. Mechai v'malkios, if he did not bury, he doesn't get malchus. Umechayavim is bezn, nor does bezn apply capital punishment to a summa. He's exempt from all these penalties. It's all based on psukim. My time to read the why. Gomer einecha v'edim zerimin. So we have the Edom who were proven false, they were discredited, and the pasuk has a lashon of ayin, einecha over there. We connect that to baishas payout, where it also says einecha, we have exer shava, and we say mahasam sumin, like just like by the Edom zerimin, you can't be speaking about blind people. Blind people can't. How could they testify if they didn't see? Likewise, there's no baishas for a summa. There's no golius as well. The sani b'lei ra'is pratos summa. He killed a person without noticing. Apparently, he's a person that can't see, so a summa is exempted from this halacha. The Rabbi Yehuda, actually, l'rabbi is a summa. This very pasuk includes a summa for golus, for the golus penalty. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's Rabbi Yehuda sourced? Amalach. He says like this. The pasuk begins and describes his unintentional attack. He came to the forest to chop wood. Basically anybody, right? Even if afilu summa, it can allude even to a blind man, right? So I would think even a summa is liable to golus. No, comes the pasuk and says, "B'loi rais." He killed him without noticing him. Apparently, he's a person who can see. L'mute, to exclude a summa. Rabbi Meir goes the other way. So B'lei rais says, well, it's only a person who can theoretically see, who has eyesight. L'mute, as opposed to a summa. And then the pasuk says, people he does without noticing. He didn't notice. Apparently, he's the person who can, who should be paying attention and should be noticing. L'mute, so once again, that again rules out the summa, and we know that we have an exemption after an exemption. That says no, don't exempt, don't be might, actually include. That's the formula, and therefore we include even the summa. For Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says das is not a reference to blind or not blind. It just means to say this fellow killed him unintentionally, as opposed to if he intentionally killed him. Okay, bottom line is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Summa doesn't pay baishis, doesn't go to Golas. What about Chayav Mrs. Bezdin? There's no Mrs. Bezdin to a Summa. Asi Ritzeach Mechayev Golias. By going to Golas, it has Lashon Ritzeach, and by Mrs. Bezdin, it says Ritzeach. We connect the two. And finally, Chayav Malchus. What about being exempt from Malchus? Asya, Russia, Mechayev Mrs. Bezdin. By Mrs. Bezdin, it has Russia, and by Malchus, it has Russia. We make a Shabbat to link all of them together. So basically, it's a chain, right? Starting point is the Eidim Zaymimin, which takes us to Baishas. Then we have the Golus, its own pasuk, and then that links into Chayav Mrs. Bezdin, which links into Chayav Malchus, and therefore all these don't apply to a Summa. Okay, bottom line is we primarily discussed the halacha of Baishas when after we finished the discussion regarding the halacha of the temporary paralysis, temporary loss of wages. Do we just focus on loss of wages? Do we look at temporary loss of value as well? This was a shaila, this was a discussion, a machlekes. We discussed the payout to the Eved Ivri and to his master, various ways of determining baishas. Is it status-based? Is it inherent value-based? Is it somewhere in between? We discussed a katan's baishas experience. When it's really, serious, then it really does affect him. And we had an interesting shaila regarding the essence of baishas. Is it personal embarrassment, family embarrassment? Is it zilusa? Nafkamina would be the victim never, was aware of this baishas at all. We didn't have a conclusion on that. And we discussed the halacha of the summa, which according to Rabbi is exempt from many halachas. All the best to you, Psuras Tovis, and Tzlacha Rabbah.